Aloha and welcome to Wind in Her Hair. I'm Anna, your host, and today I have my first solo female guest on the show. You're the first, Monica. First,
Oh, I'm so honored.
I interviewed a couple once before, but you're the first single woman. I mean, you're not single, but anyhow, Monica is an intimacy and relationship coach. You are a speaker, a best-selling author, and also a podcast host. So, welcome, Monica.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so excited to be here.
And please tell us a little bit more about you. I know you have four children. We have three kids, this exact same gender and ages.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, so I am celebrating my 24-year wedding anniversary this weekend. We're going to Morgan Wallen, so
Congrats. Oh,
super
yay.
excited.
Mhm.
Yeah, so and then we have four kids. One of them is married, the oldest, and I wrote my best-selling book, Bad Marriage Advice, for them. So
Mhm.
my son and daughter-in-law. It's basically like a beginner's guide meets cautionary tale to marriage, right? So when you announce that you're getting married and when you're getting married young, you get all kinds of marriage advice, and a lot of it is really bad. So when they called me and told me they were getting married, I was like, "Oh my gosh," and I sat down to write them a note and it turned into a book.
I love that. How fun. And yeah,
Yeah.
bestseller. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a labor of love and it was a learning
Mhm.
experience. So good luck to you in your big launch. I'm excited for you as well.
Thank you. I sat down and wrote the book thinking, wow, everything that I've gone through, people need to hear
Hmm.
about what they're signing up for before
Yeah.
they get into a marriage and be educated about all the things, narcissism, dismissive avoidance, addiction, all that stuff. I had no idea what I was signing up for when I said yes. Should we talk about man keeping, this term that's blowing up?
I think it's crazy, but yeah, let's go.
So, this term is trending right now, and women are exhausted from trying to be everything to their husbands and coordinate everything and being their husband's therapist and emotional keeper. And it says here, according to chat, that 48% of people are now open to emotional outsourcing. So they're having one partner for physical needs and a completely separate person for emotional needs. What do
Okay.
you think about that?
Well, I mean, that sounds like hiring an assistant. So, I mean, if
Mhm.
you're gonna, lots of people hire like a house manager, an assistant, or something like that, like great, sure, if you have the financial resources for that. But what I would recommend, and this might be a controversial opinion, if you're a woman and you feel like you're man keeping, you're probably enabling your partner to get away with a lot more than he should. So this is all part of the skills I teach couples is you should be asking for what you want and what you need. If you're doing the lion's share of the emotional labor, then something needs to be renegotiated. So you can make requests, you can set boundaries, but in modern marriage, and this is why people need more skills. Modern marriage, we expect a lot. Typical households are both income earning, both partners are working, and so regardless of how much money either one of them is bringing in, you've got to think, how do we renegotiate these traditional gender roles or expectations to create our own functioning system? And that requires a lot of communication and it
Mhm.
requires a lot of collaboration. And so if you feel like you're man keeping, there's a lot we can do before you feel the need. Outsourcing is an option, but I'm
Mhm.
not gonna say, like, find a sister wife or something. I'm gonna say get an assistant.
I love that. The second part of this question is that a him problem, a her problem, or a marriage problem?
It's a marriage problem, absolutely. Yes.
And I feel very strongly about when you enter a relationship, you're concerned with the chemistry. We all are. You feel the chemistry. But the most important thing that most people don't do is make a logical decision. Are we aligned? Are we compatible? Like you said.
Mm.
Um, because that's what'll take you the distance in a relationship, right? Not the chemistry. How do you
Mm.
feel about that?
You know, I have an interesting take on it probably
Mhm.
because I do have a lot of couples that when they come to see me, they'll say, we just don't feel compatible. We're too different.
Mhm.
And I will say, what is actually the problem with being different? Because we're all different,
Mhm.
right? Like you didn't marry your clone, hopefully. No two people are alike. And so, how do we work with these differences? Again, it requires some skills. I will tell you that my partner and I are very, very, very different. On paper, you probably would call us
Mhm.
incompatible. But it is our differences that creates the passion in our marriage, and it's navigating those differences that creates the intimacy in our marriage. And
Mhm.
so I would argue that differences are great. I
Mhm.
love differences. I think that having different perspectives on things strengthens your partnership and
Mhm.
definitely gives you more resources for parenting. So
Mhm.
it's learning how to respect and honor your differences versus, seeing your differences as something that's holding you back.
Mhm. Okay, well, let me rephrase that. So
Yeah.
I agree, differences are good, but you probably also have an aligned relationship where you do some stuff together, you agree on your lifestyle. That's what I mean. If you
Mhm.
have an active, healthy person who's good with their finances and loves the outdoors, and then you end up marrying somebody who's overweight, eats fast food, watches TV, doesn't like the outside, spends, you know what I mean? You have to find someone you can have the differences, but then also
Yeah.
you have to have alignment. So
Yeah,
are you and your husband
I
aligned
think that
in?
would be a problem. Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, we have a lot of the same goals. And
Mhm.
yes, we do inspire each other to be better, right? Like we work out together at 5:30 in the
Oh,
morning and,
that's great.
we have very different spending philosophies, but we work with that really, really well. I think that's a great strength of ours. But I can see how the scenario that you just described would
Mhm.
be a big problem. And some couples aren't meant to stay together. It's like something like that does seem like a big, big problem. And so I do have couples that I work with that, you know, after learning some skills and that there are just some things that they, aren't going to budge on. And so they choose to amicably separate and go their own ways without regret. This might seem a little controversial with that question that you asked me, but if you need two different partners to make you happy, that's a you thing, not a marriage, modern marriage,
Mhm.
anything thing. The reality is, in order to create a good marriage, you're meeting your own needs and choosing somebody else to do your life with. I do see a bit of a red flag when you say you need somebody for your emotional needs and somebody for your physical needs or whatever. You don't
Mhm.
really need anyone for any of your needs besides you. But we do have a need for human connection, and I don't see any reason why one person can't
Mhm.
be that for. I don't think modern marriage is moving in that direction.
Mhm. And if you're with a man, women who is not emotionally available, that makes them pretty much a dismissive avoidant, right? On the attachment styles. And that's a big problem, especially if they're unaware of it and they're not willing to change. Like we talked about a few minutes ago, maybe you're just not aligned. That was my case. I was married to a
Yeah.
dismissive avoidant. We had no emotional connection. I remember asking us for years and years, why is there no emotional connection? Why can't we talk about our dreams and our future together and our goals? And it was very disheartening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have a partner who's not willing
Mhm.
to be with you and work with you and share their life with you, then absolutely you made the
Mhm.
right decision.
And I love what you said too about people meeting their own needs. That's part of being a securely attached person, is being able to meet your own needs, and then you find somebody who is a bonus to your life, who's not trying to complete you or make you happy. A lot of people don't know how to meet their own needs or express their needs. A lot of people don't even know what they need.
Yep, that's literally what my book is about. But yeah, those are
Yeah.
you just addressed a couple of the bad marriage pieces of bad marriage advice in my book. One chapter is all about, find someone who completes you. That's garbage, we know, right?
Hmm.
And then learning how to express your needs, right? That often comes out in if they loved you, they would just know.
Right.
Nobody reads minds, right? No, they wouldn't,
Mhm.
right? If you're waiting for somebody to just know what you need or what you want, you're going to be sorely disappointed because people don't read minds. They follow instructions. And so if you aren't getting what you want in your relationship and you want your partner to treat you differently, you got to roll up your sleeves and teach them.
And if they're not willing to learn, then you need a new partner.
Probably, yeah.
And I love this. I heard this recently about how everybody, it's like life is a game of chess and everybody has their own rule book that they're playing by. And it's like a subconscious thing. These rules were made since childhood. What worked for you, what didn't, what you experienced, what hurt you, all those things. And you enter a relationship and you just kind of assume the other person's going to play by your rule book, but they're not. They're playing by their rule book. And so when they don't make a move the way that you expect them to, you're kind of just discouraged and frustrated. Like, why aren't they playing this game the way I want them to or the way that I would play? And that's why, like you said, direct and honest communication is so key. Being able to say, hey, let's talk about our rules so that we can have a fun playing this game of life together.
Yeah, I love the analogy you made. I call it a manual. We all come with our own manuals, right? A manual of instructions. But we very rarely show our manuals to the people who need it the most. How can I expect you to know how to love me and treat me and be a good partner to me if I'm not going to show you my manual of instructions?
I love that. The manual.
Yeah.
That's eye-opening. So you've seen thousands of marriages probably. At what point does we're just in a rough patch become we've actually checked out and neither of us will say it?
Yeah, that looks like a lot of withdrawal. If neither partner is willing to work on the relationship, then you've got a dead relationship. You have to have at least one partner who wants things to change. And then they have to have enough leverage with the other partner to get them to help. People always ask, how do I know when I should go to a therapist or a coach or something to get help? And I'm like, when you can't do it on your own, that's when you need to get some help. So you got to have at least one partner who's going to point out that we need some help here. And I get lots of couples where one partner drags the other partner in. As long as they're present, we can at least work with that.
I love the analogy too of having two builders. I mean, in that case, the person they're dragging in isn't necessarily a builder, but maybe you get to the point where you say, hey, I can't build this by myself.
Yep.
And so are you willing to build with me? Again, back to my ex, I basically said, are you willing to build with me? And he said, no. And so I said, okay, I guess I'm leaving then. And that made it easy. Another question though is when you said, how do I know when I should get a therapist or a coach when you can't do it on your own? Some people may not even know if they can't do it on their own, but you just look at the fruit, right?
Are
Is
you
what you're
happy?
doing working?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Are you happy? Your book is literally called Bad Marriage Advice. What's the one piece of advice that women specifically keep following that is quietly destroying their marriages? Women or men, both.
Yeah, I mean, many of them, I would say, but I would say probably specifically if I had like an audience of women in front of me, I would say stop hinting. Stop expecting your partner to know what's in your manual. Like, stop waiting for Prince Charming to love you enough to read your mind. It's never, ever, ever going to happen. You're never, no matter how much they love you and care about you, they'll never be able to read your mind. This is why you get that trope that women are so complicated, men could just never understand. Women need to stop expecting men to just know who they are. It's like, I love that there's all these like programs where like, I'll teach you how to know something about women, or, I'll teach you how to be whatever. We're all so different. I think women more than men expect somebody to just know what they're thinking, know what they want, know what their expectations are. Nobody does. Okay, so that's number one. Number two that I see really, really a lot of women struggle with is this idea that a good woman takes care of their man sexually. There's for decades and generations, there was this whole idea of the proper care and feeding of a man, right? Like
I read that.
tummy full and his penis empty, right? Like just that whole idea that that's kind of the women's job to care for a man's sexuality. And I think that and all the different variations of that creates a lot of problems in marriage. It's very, very difficult to create a healthy sexual relationship when it is an obligation. And there are so many things that set that up badly, right? The porn industry, Hollywood, all of the messages we get about sexuality really, really make it hard for a woman to sift through how do we co-create a sexual relationship where both of us really benefit, and a place where we can go in our sexuality that we can be cared for and both really feel seen and loved and appreciated and connected.
So if it's not mainly the woman's responsibility then to take care of her husband sexually, however you phrased it, how does that work then? Because he's not going to go get his sexual fulfillment outside of the marriage.
Yeah. Well, the idea that sex is for men and women are there to care for them in that way is completely antithetical to any type of eroticism or sexual energy. That so eventually that's going to die out. It's just going to be something on my to-do list, and I'm going to resent the hell out of it. So the way you combat that is that you create a sexual experience where both partners want to be there. So yeah, I'm not saying men need to go outside of the relationship to get
Right.
what they want or need. They need to figure out, how do I give to my wife what she needs as well, so she wants to be here with me.
What's like the top few pieces of advice you would tell someone right now to create a sexual experience? What would you tell them to do?
Oh yeah, I work with newlyweds all the time. This is one of my favorite things, to help them set up a healthy sexual relationship, because it is so very layered. So you want to first and foremost be able to talk about sex. So whenever I have a newlywed couple come work with me, and actually at all stages of marriage, but if I had like a clean slate to kind of work with, I recommend setting up a Sex Talks Tuesday. And that's just what I call it because it rolls off my tongue. You can do it any day of the week. But Sex Talk Tuesday is a standing appointment where you talk about your sex life, and you talk about it very explicitly. You don't talk about it while you're having sex or in the bedroom. You go for a walk, you go for a drive, you do something together, and you discuss, how is our sexual relationship? You have to set up at the very beginning of your marriage that sex is an important part of this contract we're making. Unless both of you don't care about it. If both of you are not interested in sex, then disregard everything I'm saying. But one or both of you is going to be interested in sex, okay? So you've got to make it a priority. Just like anything else, it requires time, energy, even financial resources. So we're going to say that sex is an important part of this partnership. And so we're going to make a commitment to talk about it every single week to see how it's going. So set up your Sex Talk Tuesday. You want to know, how is this going? Are you getting what you want? Am I getting what I want? How do we set this up so that we're both like really, really able to communicate? A lot of times new married couples, they're not going to know what they want and need sexually.
So true.
You've got to set it up beforehand. How, like the first week you're married, you want to talk about, how was that? How is this? How are we shaping this in our marriage? How's it working now? How do we want it to work in the future? What do we both want and need? Get curious. Like, what was that experience like for you? What was like it for me? So once you have Sex Talk Tuesday set up, you're not going to miss it. Every single week, Sex Talk Tuesday. Love for new couples to do this, but my husband and I still do this, like at different times in our marriage, right? 24 years later, we still find this a good exercise to do. And it's where we set up, I get one day/night of the week, and he gets one day/night of the week. And on my day, I set up the sexual experience. I set up the sexual environment. I am in charge of all the anticipation. I'm in charge of the foreplay. I'm in charge of everything that's going to work up to that point, right? For me, like a good sexual experience in the evening starts the first thing we wake up. So it's Monday, it's my day. We need to wake up, 10 minutes before we need to get out of bed because I want to snuggle.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we need to, I want you to send me notes throughout the day that tells me how hot I am and how much you cannot wait. Like I will do the same, right? But these are my preferences.
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
husband, on his day, he doesn't need a slow burn all throughout the day.
Yeah.
He just wants
Mhm.
to know it's going to happen at night, right? And then during the sexual experience, I am in charge. We are doing it this way with this lighting. I want, these aphrodisiacs. I want, this music playing in the background. Like, this is what I want to happen on my day. I'm engaging all five senses. And then on my husband's day, he gets to do all of it. It's like
Mhm.
it is his preferences. We're doing it his way. He's in charge.
Mhm.
Now, the person who is not in charge, their job is to show up open and curious. We're not going to judge. We're not going to criticize. We're showing up open and available. And then we're going to let what happens happens. Obviously, there's guardrails. You can set up some guardrails around this, like we're
Mhm.
whatever, according to your values.
Mhm.
But then we're gonna talk about it on Sex Talk Tuesday. What did you love about your experience? What did you love about my experience? We're going to co-create a sexual experience and relationship that we both love. How are we going to do it? By doing it with intention, by focusing on it, by communicating about it, by trying new things, by getting curious about each other, by allowing for me to show up the way I want to and he to show up the way he wants to, right? We're going to give all of this space.
Mhm.
And then date night in addition to that. So set up weeknights, that one for each of you, and then make sure on the weekends you're going out on a date. Now, this can include sexual activity or not include sexual activity, but it's something fun, connecting, and memorable that the two of you can do together. It doesn't have to be expensive, elaborate, or far from home. It just needs to be a carved out time that the two of you spend together.
Mhm. I absolutely love this. I think having this Sex Talk Tuesday is, first of all, a game changer.
Mhm.
This is a new idea for me, a new concept. And I would even go so far as to say is before you get married, have talk about expectations and stuff.
Yeah.
Usually the man who wants more sex to find out gets married and
Mhm.
he doesn't want sex. So
Yeah.
20 years later, they've had sex like 5 times. So, so sad.
Yeah. I don't see a lot of that right from the get-go.
Mhm.
Normally, when couples get
Mhm.
married, they're both pretty interested in sex, but
Mhm.
very, very, very quickly it can turn bad, right? But you want to set something in place to where that doesn't happen. So in those sex talk Tuesdays, that's where you're going to bring up like, hey, like sex in my family was like, we did not talk about it. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of uncomfortable talking about sex. So be patient with me. So before you get married, definitely have the conversation. Listen, I'm interested in having a sexual relationship. That's very important to me.
Mhm.
Is that important to you? We'll figure it out. But as long as both of us understand that sex
Mhm.
is an important part of this relationship, you're good to go.
Yeah, it's not going to be like an afterthought. How some people they get married and finances are a big part, parenting, and then sex is like over here on the side, like a little icing on the cake type of thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's one of the main ingredients of a
Yes.
healthy relationship.
Smart couples know the big three: sex, money, parenting. Religion is in there too, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that people really, really, really stumble over in their marriage. So you
Uh-huh.
definitely want to have those conversations before. Don't get married unless you've had those big four.
Yes, and that's also what I tell my clients is such a good point. When you're on a date, ask them these type of questions so you can vet them sooner than later and understand this is what I mean by alignment, by the way, or compatibility. Are we on the same page regarding parenting? How do you
Yeah. Do
discipline
you
your kids?
even want kids?
Yeah,
Right. Like,
exactly. Do you
if
even
you're,
want kids?
yeah.
Or like money, do you like saving? Or are you a spender? And talk about, I think one of the most important questions you would ask is if there's been any sexual abuse, which is a hard thing to talk about, but if there has been sexual abuse and it hasn't been healed, that's going to affect your marriage forever
Mhm.
and your own life. That's something to consider too. I love that. I'm going to take this piece of advice into my marriage whenever I do get remarried.
Yeah, I absolutely. I would say have those big four conversations first. If you both decide sex is an important part of our marriage, if something's a priority to you, you don't just ignore it. It has to be nurtured. And so you're going to set aside time on your calendar. If money is a big deal to you, you're going to set up some, you know, budgeting meetings around it. Like you're going to talk about it. Like, how do we get on? I hate the term, like, how do we get on the same page about this? Because I don't know that my husband and I have ever completely agreed about money. It's not like we agree about it, but we very much understand how each other comes at money. And so we have a good working relationship around money, even though we don't necessarily agree. So with all of these things, you're not going to exactly be on the same page, but you got to be in the same book.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So going back to one piece of advice you would give them is to have your sex talks Tuesdays and to even set apart a night a week or two for some intentional intimacy.
Yeah.
What other pieces of bad advice are out there?
Oh gosh, where do we even begin? Happy wife, happy life? I hate that one.
Yeah.
And that one gets said all the time. Happy wife, happy life, right? I love it when people say that with like so much pride. They're like, "Oh, yeah, she's the boss. Happy wife, happy life. We always just defer to her." That's
Yeah.
lazy. Nobody's going to be happy in that arrangement for long. You know, I
Yeah.
have a lot of wives, they're like, "Oh, I kind of like that one." But do you? Do you really like that one? You think your resentful husband is gonna, you know, you're gonna like that when your husband's just like, "I don't get what I want ever. It always goes my wife's way." Like, eventually that's gonna catch, even if your husband loves to make you happy, which hopefully he does, and you love to make him happy. So a better way to say happy wife, happy life is happy spouse, happy house. That's a little bit more equitable. I like that better. But at the end of the day, you have no control over your partner's happiness, and that's the truth. It's happy partner, happy partner. That's how that goes. I'm in charge of my happiness and you're in charge of yours. Like that's really how that goes.
So true. And people look to others to make them happy. And maybe they'll make them happy for a little while, but it's not long lasting. I don't like that term either. I wouldn't like my husband always defer to me. I want to hear his opinion. I want to do it his way sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And we talk a lot about toxic men in dating culture. By the way, I think there's just as many toxic women as men, neither better or more worse than the other. But what are women doing in marriage that they refuse to take accountability for? Or
Ooh.
men? Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. I actually love this question because I think both men and women, I'll tell you how this links back to bad marriage advice because I hear a lot of experts, a lot of marriage so-called experts, or the advice given that divorce is not an option. So you hear that say all the time, like take divorce off the table, divorce is not an option. Now, if you are in a marriage where divorce is not an option, what motivation do you have to act as a team player or take accountability for your impact on your partner? So I think the advice, divorce is not an option, is toxic. I don't like to label people as toxic. I've never gotten on that kind of whole train. I think there are ideas. I think that there are constructs that are toxic. And one toxic construct is this idea that you're married for life. There's a difference between commitment and being trapped. So if you feel like you are married and that's it, and divorce is not an option, then you're going to be a lot less willing to take accountability for your side of the street or what you are contributing that is not working well for the pair, right? Stop saying that divorce is not an option because A, it's a lie. Divorce is always an option. And B, it is keeping people from taking accountability for the impact they have in their relationship and on their partner.
So that's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that before, but that was my idea in the beginning of marriage. I grew up a Christian. We're taught you don't get divorced ever unless there's infidelity.
Right.
And I remember thinking, okay, if divorce isn't an option, then we have to make this work. And so I tried everything under the sun, went to recovery programs, the therapist, pastoral counseling, all this stuff, and nothing worked because you can't change someone that doesn't want to work on themselves. Another term for toxic I like to use is unhealthy. So,
Yeah.
how do you describe somebody who is unhealed, who lies, who has addictions, who's not into personal growth?
Right. Well, what you described,
Mhm.
that's not commitment. So we make a marriage commitment to each other,
Right.
but what you just described is entrapment. So there's a difference between commitment. I choose to be with this person for better,
Mhm.
for worse, all the things that we make our
That is
commitment
so
around.
true.
Entrapment is there's no way out.
Mhm.
So you want to build a marriage based on choice. I choose to be with this person.
Mhm.
I choose to be with them even though they
Mhm.
have an unexpected illness that we weren't considering. I choose to be with this person even when we're in a financial situation that sucks. I choose to be with this person even though we have this challenge that we're facing that is tough. That's commitment.
Mhm.
Entrapment is something very, very different. It's that there is no way out of this marriage, and no matter what happens, you're stuck. And so there's actually to try to create something even better because you're stuck.
Right. I do see marriages where people are married for 40 years. One of them is very narcissistic or is a narcissist, and they're doomed. They're trapped, like you said. And I had never thought about it this way either. In my marriage, it was just a commitment, but it wasn't, I'm choosing you every single day. I'm choosing you over my addiction to alcohol, over my addiction to porn. I'm choosing you. There's a huge difference between choosing to get married and then choosing that person and making sacrifices and working on yourself. So that was my situation. I was just entrapped with somebody who was not motivated to change because you're right. When you realize if you're trapped, there's no motivation to change. Like, this is as good as it gets.
Right.
That's huge. That's mind blowing to me.
You're not creating a lot of hope for change and co-creation and collaboration, which is a big, big topic that I talk about. You're creating entrapment, you're creating complacency, you're creating, I always say to people that a marriage of mutual toleration, that's entrapment. Commitment is something very, very different. I am committed to you. I am committed to this relationship. I expect you to be committed to me and to this relationship. And together we're going to create something that's beautiful for both of us. That's commitment.
Mhm.
That's choice based.
So you teach men to lead their families, right? No?
Uh, I mean, I teach men and women to lead together, yes.
Yeah,
Their roles and responsibilities might be different, but they
right.
lead together.
So you can have two leaders. What happens when there's like they come to an impasse and they're like, I
Give
don't
me an
agree. We're
example.
well, let's say financially,
Okay.
maybe she wants to buy a house and he says we financially can't make it happen, and she thinks that they can. Maybe they already have three houses, and he's like, we don't need a fourth. What happens when they come to a really big decision and they can't agree on?
Yeah, that's when you collaborate. So
Mhm.
collaboration over compromise, right? So a very, very cliche piece of marriage advice is to compromise. I say that's lazy and
So
foolish.
true.
So like she wants four houses and he wants two, so they settle on three. That's a compromise. Like that's horrible, right? Collaboration is very different. So collaboration is pulling for this higher skill of we need to understand each other. We don't have to agree. So I'll tie this back to the leader thing in a minute, but
Mhm.
this is an important aspect of how men and women work together in a marriage. You you have to learn the skill of collaboration, meaning I get really, really curious about we're disagreeing about how many houses we want, okay?
Mhm.
I'm going to get really crystal clear through curiosity about what is my position. Why do I want four houses? What is the value behind? What am I not willing to give up from my perspective about this decision that we're going to make together? And then I want to get real curious and clear about my partner's position on this issue.
Mhm.
Why is this important to them? Where is this coming from? What are the values that I hold here? And what do I not want to give up? what are my reservations about your position and what are your reservations about my position. You get all of that communicated there, and then you get real resourced around it. You talk to people, you do research, you figure. This is the beautiful thing about our modern world that we live in. We have so many more resources and options than they ever had before. There's no reason why you would ever compromise when you have so many options. You can co-create the solution that works best for both of you. But you can only do that when you take the very best of what my position is and the very best of what your position is. That's collaboration. Now, a good leader is going to know what their options are. I guess if you're saying like, if we're like running the household together and like she wants to buy a vacuum and he doesn't, I would probably say, let's put that in offices. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that they're married and they run businesses together. And so we call it putting things in offices. So you can have leaders on certain topics and that can be negotiated at any time. So like, let's say if it's something to deal with cleaning, that's going to be my office. So if push comes to shove and we can't come to an agreement on whether or not we need a new vacuum and we've collaborated on it, like maybe we still both get a say in what kind of vacuum gets purchased. That would ultimately be in my office. So I'm going to make the final decision on it. If you want to call that the leader, that's fine. You can be the leader over certain things, right? But we're leading the family in the direction of our goals and dreams together. I wouldn't, one person has blanket leadership over another person, because that to me is not a collaborative marriage.
I see. I love the idea of collaborating and having different offices. And I feel like maybe I'm still more old school, that I love the idea of looking to the man to lead overall the family and we work together. He's curious about my ideas, not furious. I love that phrase when you like get crystal clear and curious about the other person's position. Okay, there's a growing conversation about women leaving marriages not because of abuse or cheating, but just because they're tired. What does that tiredness actually mean? And is the marriage salvageable at that point? I mean, I guess Claude keeps referring to women, but we could apply it to both sexes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do think there is a growing trend of women leaving marriages because, you know, in modern times, we have more financial resources and other resources that we're not entrapped anymore. So, you know, it is that much more important to create a choice-based marriage. But I do think it's both partners' responsibility to create a marriage that both partners choose to be in and stay in. So that requires asking for what you want, making requests. You know, ultimately, what it means is showing your partner exactly what's in your manual. Cannot emphasize this enough. We have to take responsibility for how we want to be treated in our marriage, men and women alike. If sex is important to you, if leadership is important to you, if finances are important to you, whatever is important to you, you have to roll up your sleeves and deal with the partner you have. You have to show them what's important to you. You do this through requests and boundaries. So yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about enabling, right? Yeah, if you're taking on the mental load of all of the housework and you're, what was the word? You're something man keeping? Yeah, you're man keeping. That's on both of you, honestly, because are you enabling him to act like a child and not take responsibility for his half of what needs to happen? Because you're not making requests or setting boundaries. So it is up to both partners to teach each other how you want to be treated. Now, we can learn lots and lots of skills around this. So let's take the example of driving. because this
Mhm.
happens. My mentor, Terry Rail of Relational Life Therapy, gives this example all the time. But you have a man who drives kind of recklessly, right? And his wife in the passenger seat is like anxious and like white knuckling, like holding on for dear life. Now,
Mhm.
you can start a 40-year war on, I'm a good driver, leave me alone, you're being too nervous, sit there and shut up.
Mhm.
Or the wife can get some skills around this. I mean, the husband has to be receptive, but the wife can say, honey, I know you love me. As a favor to me, when I'm in the car, would you mind slowing down a little bit? Because I don't want to sit here nervous and like clinging to my seat the whole way to where we're going all the time when we're driving.
Mhm.
That is a skillful request. And there's a whole lot of reasons why that works better than slow down, you're making me nervous.
Mhm.
So you've got to consider you teaching your partner how to treat you with skill, standing up to your partner with loving power, not because you need to get what you want, but because you want to be an equal partner in co creating a situation, a marriage, a relationship that works for both of you. In
Mhm.
order to do that, you have to be willing to make your requests known and your boundaries clear. And you have to be willing to understand that about your partner as well.
That is huge. I mean, if people just did those things alone, learned how to communicate their needs, share their manual, set the boundaries, teach the other partner how to treat them, that would help marriages or relationships immeasurably more
Mhm.
than they're experiencing. So, therapy language has completely taken over dating, like nervous system, attachment styles, at least in our world, right? People
Mhm,
who are not
yeah.
in the world are not familiar with this. Triggers, is that helping couples actually heal, or is it giving people new vocabulary to avoid real accountability?
Yeah, I think that depends on the person, honestly. I
Hmm.
think it's great that there's more just, cultural awareness of what's happening inside of your nervous system when
Hmm.
you get triggered. I think it's great that people are using this type of language, but again, it's totally up to the person on how they're going to use that language. So if they're using it to avoid something, then, that's on them. I love the greater awareness of actually how our bodies work and how our minds work and how connection works. And,
Hmm.
um, and people are getting, I think, more aware of trauma and triggers and all of the therapy speak, but required to be able to grow and learn and overcome and evolve. And so, yeah, I think it's beautiful that people are gaining a much greater awareness of these principles.
And also, I was thinking about this earlier when you talk about teaching people how to treat you. It's so important to ask yourself, are you happy in this relationship? If you're not
Yeah.
happy in the relationship, that's your responsibility because you're probably not expressing your needs or showing that person how to treat you. And if you feel unsafe emotionally, mentally, physically, and you're not voicing your needs or your boundaries, then that's totally on you. Most people just kind of sit around and wait for the other person to acknowledge or make the changes. And then 10, 20 years go by and you're like, what am I doing? So I love that. Teach the other person how to treat you. And if they don't want to treat you the way that you're trying to teach them, then you're with the wrong person.
Yeah, put data into the machine and see what
Mhm.
comes back out, right? Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's just being wise. You want to test out all of these things and
Mhm.
see how your partner responds. And is that the type of response you want to get for the rest of your life? Or are they going to be flexible? Are they going to let you influence them? These you can see before you decide to get married.
Oh, and I love what you said earlier was that being able to say things like, hey, let's talk about sex, which is be really hard for people, right? I interviewed this guy just recently and he talked about how one of his clients wanted to have oral sex with his wife, but he was so afraid of asking her. And so he got the courage and she wasn't into it, but he felt so much better being able to have this conversation with her. And so I look back at my relationships and how we didn't do this, but moving into my next one, I want to be able to be like, hey, we're on a drive. Let's talk about sex.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't grow up talking about sex, but let's just talk about it. Our expectations, our hopes, our desires. Let's talk about money. Maybe the next week. Let's talk about money. What are your expectations? And the more you talk about it, the easier it's going to be, and the healthier relationship should be,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
If someone is sitting in their marriage right now feeling more like a roommate, that was me, and a parent than a wife or husband or lover,
Mm.
what's the one thing they're not saying out loud that is keeping them stuck?
If you want to feel connected to your partner, you've got to put some intention behind that. So, just simple, simple, simple to the point. I'm going to tell you, if you feel disconnected in your marriage, if you feel like roommates, you're probably not going out on dates. Now, you could say, what came first, the chicken and the egg? We felt disconnected, so we stopped going on dates, or we don't go on dates because we're disconnected. Either way, the answer is put some time, energy, and intention behind your relationship. And you can start with a simple date night. 3 hours of the 168 hours that we all have in a week. That's only 3%. Put it on the calendar. Prioritize the relationship. Take the time to get the babysitter, make the arrangements, and make a plan, something that you both might enjoy. I call that oxygen for the relationship. Give the spark a little bit of oxygen and see what happens.
What would you say to the woman who's always nagging and the man who's letting her nag, but completely annoyed and he's just checking out?
That's a dynamic. Well, let's get some skills. Like, let's learn how to not nag and actually make a request that the husband in this scenario can actually hear.
That's key. Can you say it in a way where he can hear it? And if she's saying it correctly, but he's just too checked out, what would you say then?
Well, you've got to get some leverage. Like, this is what I want. If you're not willing to give it to me, then we're going to have to make some changes here. And that's just some leverage, meaning, like, if you can't get what you want on your own, you're going to need like a coach or a therapist to help you back to that, right? But you're going to create some leverage. You're basically, what you're saying in the most kind and loving way, get straight about that first, is I love you and I'm not happy here. And we need to make some changes. Otherwise, I'm going to leave. That, and you don't have to escalate straight to I'm going to leave, but I'm not happy. And if we don't make some changes, then I'm going to stop sleeping in bed with you, or I'm going to
Yeah.
stop eating dinner, or,
Yeah, then this isn't going to work. It's wild how, especially because I coach a lot of high achieving men, their businesses are so important to them, but their marriages, which should be more important, they don't treat it like it has that utmost importance. Like they should be saying, "Hey, let's come to the table. Let's have a meeting. Let's talk about this. Let's get all this stuff on the table and deal with it." So that he can be as successful in his marriage as he is in his business. But any last words, Monica? Any last things you want, any last pieces of advice you want to give my listeners?
Yeah, there's a difference between happiness and relational joy. And so, what I do with couples is help them understand relational joy and how to achieve that. So, if you're not happy, figure out, instead of complaining about what's not working, get really clear about what you actually want. Make requests, set boundaries. Again, really ask for what you want. It's out of love that we do this. It's out of love that we ask for what we want, because the alternative is resentment. So get clear that relationship is important to you, and you getting what you want out of the relationship is important to you, because otherwise you're going to be resentful, and that's not good for either party. So
I love that.
start with,
Relational
what
joy.
is it that you want, and go get it. Go get it. You should
And
be
people need to know that there's a huge difference between venting, which is complaining about something without a solution, and asking for what you want, not just talking about the negative thing that's happening without a solution, but saying, hey, I want more time with you.
Yes. Yes.
So,
What I would leave you with, like that
mhm,
closing thought,
mhm,
is go get what you want. That is what's best for both of you in the marriage, right? Like,
mhm.
don't go outside of the marriage to get what you want.
Yeah.
If you're not happy in the marriage, get really clear. What is it that you want? And go and get it. That's what's best for both of you.
That is so true. You have so much wisdom and insight, Monica. I mean, you've been married for 24 years to the same man. Was there ever a point in your marriage where you thought this isn't going to work? This isn't going to last?
Yeah. And it was a me problem.
It was a you problem.
I didn't think that I deserved that level of happiness. It was a me problem. I come from a long line of divorce. My parents divorced, my grandparents divorced. I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so my husband and I had our things to work out, but I didn't even know if that was possible. And so it took a lot of work on myself and on our marriage to make it the way that it is. But I do believe with every fiber of my being that happily ever after is possible, but it's not going to happen by accident. You got to
Mhm.
put some effort and intention and work behind it.
Before we leave, what's the one thing that you would say in your life, the one thing that you did that was a catalyst for change for you?
I figured out what I wanted and I started to
Mhm.
fight for it.
Okay, amazing. I'm
We're
going to
still,
do so many things differently in my next relationship, thanks to you, Monica.
oh,
And I
thank
really
you.
appreciate your gifts to my listeners. And I know that this is going to add a lot of value to them. And so thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you. You have monicatanner.com, right? Your website, and you're on social media. And I'll put in the show notes your website, your social media handle so people can find you.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, you can absolutely find out everything about me. All of my free resources, like my podcast, my social media, is all there listed on monicatanner.com. And you can learn how to work with me there as well.